10 days after the Montreal Canadiens on Super Bowl weekend lost by a score of 5-3 to the Buffalo Sabres, the Canadiens bounced back and shut out the Buffalo Sabres 4-0. 2 goals for Nick Suzuki and 1 assist. Another goal for Cole Caulfield. Samuel Montembeault with his first NHL shutout. Marty St. Louis Troop has won 4 in a row. And one journalist is really upset with other members of the media. I talked with Brendan Kelly coming up on the Sick Podcast.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro. The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
And now a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup.
Sports entertainment like no other. Brought to you by 8.6 Beer. Intense by nature.
It is the sickest podcast that is out there, and probably with your most sick host. I am Tony Marinaro, and you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at The Sick Podcast, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's absolutely for free. And The Sick Podcast brought to you by 8.6 Beer, intense by nature, like me. The beer for those who follow their instinct and live their passions in order to make their mark. And in terms of making his mark and being intense and living his passions, what the puck, Brendan Kelly? What's going on?
I'm doing great, Tony. You know, that's right. Habs on a winning streak, and I'm in a fury. What can I say?
That hair is absolutely fantastic, I have to tell you.
Well, who else? Like, let's, we're talking about the sports media. Who's got that kind of hair and follows the Habs?
Speaking of sports media, and probably nobody, I know that you are upset with a few people in the media, and probably I'm one of them. Why don't you tell our listeners and our viewers why?
I'm not upset. How could I be upset with you, Tony? Come on. But in fact, we often argued about Bergevin during those years. All I was saying, and I tweeted this out today, I said, you know what? Now the stories are coming out, right? Eric Engels, he kind of broke it. Great story. Interview with Jeff Gorton says the Canadiens were an absolute mess under Marc Bergevin. The Athletics got a story today about we have to modernize. All of a sudden, all these stories coming out about how Bergevin basically drove the organization into the ground. All of these people, for most of those 9 years, were saying, hail to Marc Bergevin. This guy's great. He should be GM of the year. Oh, 2014 happened. That was fantastic. Hey, we were in the Stanley Cup finals. For the full time, we started What the Puck 6 years ago. And for the whole time, I guess it could get a little boring. I agree. But I stuck to the same theme. This guy is destroying the Habs. And for most of the media, particularly the English media, they were like, who is this guy? He crawled in from a Beyonce concert, doesn't know anything about sports. He's got long hair. He's not serious. His Twitter handle is Brendan Showbiz. You know what? I was right and they were all wrong. What can I say?
Hey, what's the story here? A free plug for your Twitter handle? Do you see me giving mine out? Tony Marinaro, Tony Marinaro, by the way. Look.
That's not that interesting, Tony. Brendan Showbiz. I mean,
okay. I got it. I'll maintain this. In the last 3 years of Marc Bergevin's tenure as general manager of the Montreal Canadiens, I thought he made great individual moves, great individual trades. I think he ended up winning probably 80% of his trades. I think he did that great. Unfortunately, where he fell short, 3 categories. Number one, in the overall construction of a team, with the exception of that team that went to the Stanley Cup final last year, because he went all in and spent all the way to the cap and had the right guys for one big push in them. Number two, his management, overall management of the team. Some would say he tried to micromanage and tried to have everything under his umbrella instead of delegating different departments, which we're hearing now, and that some departments were neglected. And number 3, contracts. I think there were several contracts where he probably liked the player more than everyone else, gave a little bit too much money, a little bit too much term, and those contracts today are very tough to move. So I thought I think he's got a great eye for talent at the pro scouting level. I think he did a great job in constructing a team for one push, but it wasn't sustainable, and those contracts are hurting them.
Well, at the end of the day, I mean, it's kind of funny. I was on holiday in Los Angeles last week, and I went down to
Oh, excuse me, Los Angeles.
Someone's got to live it up, hanging in the Hollywood Hills, quite literally,
Wow.
with my sister. But, the thing is, I went down to Muscle Beach. That's a famous thing, outdoor beach on Venice Beach. And I made a little joke on social media. I said, desperately seeking Bergevin at Muscle Beach, joke about his bicep, went to LA. But so people are like, oh, come on, get over it. You got to get over Bergevin. It's like, you know what? The guy, you say he was good at individual things. I mean, the point is he was general manager for 9 years. He just got fired a couple of months ago. So obviously we're still talking about him. The stories are out there about him.
Yeah.
Individual moves mean nothing. It's like, it doesn't matter. Like if you make a great trade and it's not good for the team, then you're not a good general manager. And if you talk about the contracts, I mean, you show me one good contract. I mean, the guy was terrible at signing contracts. And Gorton and Hughes are now stuck with a real dilemma of how to get rid of these contracts, starting with, of course, Carey Price, but also Brendan Gallagher, Jeff Petrie. I mean, these are terrible contracts. I mean, so he generally signed. He did make good deals.
Jake Allen's a great contract.
Jake Allen's a great contract, and I said it at the time. Jake Allen was a great pickup. I mean,
and look, by the way, I have to admit, you raise a pretty good point when you say there's a lot of bad contracts. I'm going to add another. Ben Sherratt was a very good contract.
That's true as well. And look, they're going to get a first rounder for Ben Sherratt, so that's great.
I would think so. Okay, so is it great now that they've won 4 in a row, a 4-0 win over the Buffalo Sabres, a team that they lost to 10 days prior by a score of 5-3. They beat them 4-0, 2 goals by Suzuki, 1 assist, another goal by Caulfield. He now has 6 goals in 7 games under Marty St. Louis. For the first time this season, it taken them 50 games to win 2 in a row. Then they won 3 in a row. Now they've won 4 in a row. And a lot of people are saying, oh my God, they don't even know how to tank. I got to admit, as much as I'm having fun, I'm even saying, oh my God, they don't even know how to tank. Are you upset about this or not?
You know what they have to do, Tony, is they got to bring back Dominic Ducharme to this is a losing coach. No, I'm joking. I'm not worried. I'm not worried at all. They've won 4 straight under Martin St. Louis. There's almost always a big bounce when a new coach comes. But I got to tell you something.
Yeah.
I love Martin St. Louis. I love this guy. I loved him as a player.
Were you one of those who mocked the hiring, by the way? Because I'd like to hear from those. And I'm really glad that I'm on the good side I'm on the right side of the things here.
The very first tweet I put out when I saw it was, what the puck? But within a half hour, I was like, I like this. Because you know what? I didn't like Dominic Ducharme as a coach. I was arguing against Dominic Ducharme as a coach. And so many people were saying, oh, it's just the team. It has nothing to do with the coaching. Well, apparently it had something to do with the coaching.
Of course.
If they had this bounce, and I just want to finish the thought, it doesn't matter that they're winning these games. The first thing is, okay, they get 1 point ahead of Arizona. They're going to finish, and you didn't hear it here first, because we all know that they're going to finish in the bottom 3 of the league.
Yes.
And firstly, if you finish last, hello, it's a lottery. You don't necessarily get the first pick. The second thing is you don't necessarily want the first pick because it's not clear that Shane Wright is the best pick that's out there. And whoever gets the first pick will pick it because it's a consensus league and they've decided it's Shane Wright. So it doesn't matter. You just need a top 3 pick. And unlike in the previous regime that was run by the people that I like to call the bicep brigade, who made
stop with that. Come on. They don't call you the Mr. Hair Salon. I mean, what do you call they call you Hair Salon?
They do actually.
Oh, really?
I'm kidding. Okay, that was a little below the belt. I take that off the table. But the reality was they were drafting poorly, and so they blew 2 top 3 picks. So if you're a good picker, and we never know, but chances are if you get 1, 2, or 3, you're doing okay. And you know what? You don't want to suck forever. You can't lose 8-2. You can't lose 7-1 every game. Listen, Martin St. Louis, all you need to know about this is if he turns around Cole Caulfield, and he did.
He did.
Remember at the end of the Dominic Ducharme regime, how crazy was this, Tony? Cole Caulfield on the 4th line on the worst team in the league?
Well, Brendan, when Dominic Ducharme was coach, I was saying almost every day send Cole Caulfield down to the Laval Rocket, because it was a goal that was in 10 games, and then it became, or whatever it was, a goal in 20, and then it became, I think, a goal in 28 or a goal in 29. He was playing on the fourth line. He wasn't getting on the power play. He was getting about 12 and a half to 13 minutes a game. His confidence was rock bottom. He was getting chances in close. He was missing the net by like 10 feet. And I'm like, okay, you got to send him to Laval. In comes Marty St. Louis, who preaches concepts, who allows for some freedom, who puts his confidence in him, who plays him on the number one line, puts him with Suzuki and with Josh Anderson, puts him back on the power play. And then all of a sudden, this guy's off to the races. But I'm going to tell you this. Marty St. Louis, let's talk about the changes that he made. Number one, you saw this team playing zone defense. He didn't think they did it very well. He switched to a man-to-man. He did that after 45 games under Dominic Ducharme, playing that system this year. The transition game from defense to offense has been fantastic. They're using a lot more stretch passes. He's giving his better players a lot more playing time. He's found roles for other players. He's put a lot of confidence into Rem Pitlick. He's turned Jeff Petrie's game around. He commands immediate respect. He's finding a different way of motivating his players in what is a lost season anyways. I think he's done a fantastic job. And I know I talked about this with Stu Cowan and Francois Gagnon, and the list goes on. But, I mean, you can forget about that interim tag. I mean, it's coming off in the offseason. Everybody knows that. He's the head coach of the Canadiens going forward.
He is the head coach of the Canadiens, and he always wanted to be the head coach, not the interim head coach. But I would simplify it even further, Tony. You read the interviews with this guy. He's a really smart hockey mind. He's the smartest coach of the Canadiens and certainly the most articulate coach of the Canadiens in a long time. And the key concept, and he's explained it very clearly, is the difference between a system, which he doesn't like, running a system, which is what Dominic Ducharme was doing and what most coaches do, and having a concept. And one of his key concepts is he was a dynamic, creative player. So he's saying, you know what? Have some fun out there. Go out, yeah. Cole Caulfield, that's what you do. Go and do it. Nick Suzuki, that's what you do. Go and do it. And this is not just a little thing. This is the first coach since the 1970s who said, you know what's the weirdest thing with the Canadiens over the last 40 years? New coach comes in. Half the time it's a new coach who was an old coach. But even if it's a new coach who's a new coach, he seems like the old coach.
Well,
they always have the same thing.
I can't wait to have this conversation with Marty St. Louis. And at one point, I want to bring this up as Brendan has jammed up here. He's never looked better. Look at him. Vidal Sassoon is back. Okay, listen to me carefully.
Okay, if you call me Vidal Sassoon, I'm allowed to make some jokes about the muscle.
Yeah. Oh no, that guy. You know what? That guy didn't make any jokes about me because there's plenty to make fun of there. I tell you that right now. But I look forward to having this conversation with him one day. And I had this discussion with a buddy of mine last night. The fact that Marty St. Louis, obviously very short in stature, played in a league with big men, with giants, and when the league was physical and stuff like that. All his career, going back to the amateur level, he wasn't able to use his size to his advantage. When you're able to use your size to advantage, you get by on physicality, you get by on athleticism. When you don't have that, you have no other choice but to exercise this up here, because if you don't play with this, you're going to end up getting crunched. You won't be able to come out of tight spaces. You're not going to be able to come out with the puck. You're going to have a hard time. The fact that he was able to exercise this his entire playing career has given him a great hockey mind, as I point to my brain here. It's given him a great hockey mind as a head coach. And there are things that you can do to help exercise the mind, to think a better game, to become a smarter player, which I'm sure he's introduced in some of those concepts and in some of those practices, and he's working on some of those things for his players all to become smarter players, which they probably weren't doing before, because it takes someone who played the game, who had to rely on his brain, who knows exactly what you can do to exercise that muscle, a very important one.
Well, it's funny because, and we've talked about this, you've talked about this on the radio, everyone's laughing at him, Pee-wee coach, he's only ever coached his kids. There's a great line in his opening press conference when one of the Francophone journalists says, I want to be polite. On the story, I was like, you didn't coach at that high level. He's like, come on, don't, beat around the bush. I didn't coach at any level. And Yet he comes in there.
I think he called him a junior coach, and he said, "You're being nice."
That's exactly what he
Yeah.
said. You got a better memory for exact words than me. But the point is, Martin St. Louis comes in and when you see him talk, whether it's in these interviews or whether it's in the post-game press conference, and he's analytical and he's able to explain things. And for years and years, I was watching Ducharme, terrible communicator. I'm sorry, he is. He just is a terrible communicator to the media. And I'm watching Julien. I'm watching Terrien. These guys, they're inarticulate. They're not good at doing this thing. And I'm thinking there's coaches like, I was always very impressed by a guy like John Cooper. John Cooper gets out there, and whether they won or lost, he analyzes the game, and he can talk about what his team did right and what his team did wrong. And that's what Martin St. Louis does. And he's got a hockey IQ. That interview where he was talking about how he was always good at math and he sees hockey like math, it's kind of like, it's almost like genius type stuff. And in any case, I mean, he's going to have his ups and downs as well, but it's hockey IQ. And the interesting thing, you talk about his stature, his size, he got into the league undrafted.
Yeah.
His Vinny Lecavalier, who now of course works for the Canadiens, he says, hey, Steve, give this guy a gander up in wherever he's playing in Vermont, I guess. And there were almost no players his size now. Now there are more smaller players in the league, and it's a different league, right? It's a league that's much more based around speed, skill. And so he's really well suited to that. And look, at the end of the day, as we always say in this very space, sports, it's a results-oriented business. Dominic Ducharme was not a good coach of the Montreal Canadiens because he has a bad record. That's all you need to know. Scotty Bowman was a good coach because he's got a great record. I mean,
it's a results-oriented business, like you said. And now, speaking of business and speaking of hockey teams, any team, actually any sport, any jersey, any player, sportbuffshop.com for all of your officially licensed sports apparel and our sick merchandise as well. Look at this baby here, huh? Not bad. Pretty nice, huh? The sick team. You can use code SICK15 for 15% off on all of their items. I want to talk to you about Samuel Montembeault, who picked up his first NHL shutout. He just keeps getting better and better and better. At the beginning of the season, I said, oh my God, this is a mitigated disaster. And now his rebound control is better. He doesn't swim. He manages the game a lot better. He doesn't panic. He doesn't overcommit. His lateral movements are better. He's doing a great job. And I was happy to see him pick up his first shutout in the National Hockey League.
Yeah, what an inspirational story, eh? I mean, a guy picked up on waivers who was pretty bad to begin with, let's face it, and put into an incredibly difficult situation. Carey Price out, where there'd be a press conference coming up, I guess, on just the 800th Carey Price press conference to figure out what's going on with him. But he's gone. He hasn't played a game. Then Jake Allen goes down. So you get a guy who's not an NHL number one goalie, at least at this stage, and he's been doing great. He was, to be fair, he was starting to come around a little under Ducharme. And the other great things we should mention, the deal to go and get the man we now call the Habs burglar, to allow Primo to get out of this situation, because what, Primo might be our number one goalie in the future, maybe not, but whatever the case, they were destroying this guy with what was happening. So that's what I mean. It's all positive. To me, I don't see any negatives as of yet with this new regime. And they're early days. Like, everyone's like, oh, give them time. Yeah, like if in 2 months, they make a bunch of, or say up until the trade deadline, if they make a bunch of bad deals, we'll be the first to say they're bad deals. So far, I'm sorry, the Toffoli deal was a great deal. Picking up the Habs burglar was a great deal. So we'll see what they do with they'll be very active, I'm sure. But so far, so good. I mean, you got to give these guys credit.
Well, the Toffoli deal was a good deal for both teams, considering what the Canadiens are trying to accomplish, and the fact that Calgary gets a proven goal scorer who's under contract at $4.25 million for half of this season and the next 2 years. So they win that trade as well. Should be noted, by the way, that's a great move that Kent Hughes made, acquiring Andrew Hammond, who hadn't played in the National Hockey League since April of 2018, and he played his last game, and he won it and played really, really well his first game as a Hab. But it's a great deal because the Canadiens had 48 players 48 under contract. You're allowed 50, which means that if they were going to acquire Hammond and not trade a contract in return, they hit number 49. If they sign Jordan Harris, who's a player they drafted 3 years ago, at that point they hit 50. And then if they make a move between now and the trade deadline and you trade away one player and you get 2 contracts back, now all of a sudden you've gone over that limit and you're not allowed to do that. You can't. So they make a trade with Bill Guerin and they give him tough guy Brandon Baddock, who was never in their plans. And so they give away a contract. They get one back. It cancels itself out. And I think clearly Bill Guerin did his buddy Kent Hughes a little bit of a favor in that one. Okay, you brought up Carey Price. Tomorrow is Friday, February 25th. And Chantal Maccabee, Senior VP of Communications, tells us, or VP of Communications with the Montreal Canadiens, tells us that there will be a medical update on Carey Price tomorrow. There's been a medical update on pretty much everyone else. We'll find out what happens with Josh Anderson and Paul Byron, who left the game on Wednesday night. But what are you expecting to hear regarding Carey Price on Friday, February 25th?
As we used to say, the big donut, as in 0. I mean, I was playing hockey last night, and in the room, the goalie says, beer league hockey, he says he's going to announce his retirement. Anything's possible, but I don't think so.
No, not tomorrow. He won't. No, he won't. I don't think so. I'd be shocked.
They're going to give a fairly meaningless update. I mean, we've been talking, this is because it's been going on since the Stanley Cup final, but it's also been going on for, is it 4 or 5, basically since Chris Kreider rammed into him in the spring of 2014. And I mean, listen, I think at the end of the day, what we have with Carey Price, I always go back to what Stéphane Waite said when he was, and I mean, oh God, one of the low points of the Bergevin regime was firing Waite between period 2 and period 3 of a game. But when Waite was super upset and he was leaving, goaltending coach, and he says, you know what? He says, remember that interview, I believe it's in Le Journal, he said, Price is beat up. His back is gone. His legs are, like
Hey. He said it right here on the Sick Podcast. He said it here on the Sick Podcast. He said he had injury to his knees, his hips, his back, his legs, his groin, everything.
And so that's what I think is the story with Carey. He's given it all, and there's nothing left there. And that was, I'm not saying his career is over, but I don't think we're going to learn anything. I think he is, he's, and it is a bit mysterious. I mean, we were assured, that he would be back playing. We were assured, then he went into the rehab, the player assistance program for substance abuse issues. Yeah. And then he returns to the team. Memory serves like early November, and then boom, nothing's happening. So it is super mysterious, but it's just like the year we went and reached out and got Condon to replace him. He was supposed to be gone 3 weeks. He ended up being gone for 6 months. This is the Carey Price story, and it's a sad story, and it's an absolute disaster for the team. And you have to go back and think, and I'm not saying right or wrong, but there's an argument to be made that the worst thing the team ever did was draft Carey Price and build everything around him.
Well, there's an argument to be made. You would have picked up 3 more wins last year. We probably wouldn't have said that. But anyway, long story short, the disaster, you know what the disaster would be? If he comes back this year and he starts winning games for the Canadiens, because you don't want to win too many of them. Because let's be honest here, if they end up having, the best chance at the number 1 pick to going to a top 3 pick, that's one thing. But now all of a sudden, I mean, the last thing you want is to go on an extended winning streak. Now, maybe he wouldn't do it anyway. I think they'll leave it open. I think they'll say that they're still optimistic that he's going to get back. There was a little bit of a setback, but they're very optimistic that he should be able to be back on the ice between now and the end of the season. And it's still his goal to go out there and play some games. And I think they'll leave it open.
Like I said, a big 0. As in nothing, as in a PR move. Keep the peasants happy.
All right, the next 5 games are on the road in Ottawa, in Winnipeg, in Calgary, in Edmonton, and Vancouver. They go from February 26th, which is going to be on the weekend, on Saturday night in Ottawa, and going until March 9th. So they're going on the road. Are you going to miss them?
I think it's going to be a very interesting road trip, because it's going to be a tough one, because I think at a certain point they're running on this inspiration of Martin St. Louis. The bubble's going to burst. This is a pretty bad team, right? I mean, it really is. They're
don't talk about that right now. They've won 4 games in a row. I get you on, and you're talking about the bicep club, and now you're talking about they won 4 games in a row.
You know, it's the old joke that people used to say to me. They said, "You're so negative. You're so negative. They're going to win the cup in 7 games against Tampa Bay, and you're going to say they should have won in 4. They should have swept them." But no, but seriously, Tony, you know the bubble's going to burst. They're not going to win every game down the stretch. It's you look at the lineup. I mean, imagine if Josh Anderson is out of the lineup for any minute. We can't afford to lose. And you don't think about the injury situation. I mean, to give them a fair shake, I mean, it's incredible.
But it doesn't matter. It's a lost season. It's nice that they won 4 games in a row, but it's a lost season. The best night of the year for the Montreal Canadiens is going to be the night that they host a draft in July at the Bell Center with all of that buzz that's going to be in the building on that night. That is what we have to look forward to. For now, Cole Caulfield has scored 6 goals in 7 games under St. Louis. Nick Suzuki starting to look like a number 1 centerman. That's starting to look like the Canadiens' number 1 line with Josh Anderson. Montembeault's playing a lot better. Jeff Petrie's value has gone up. Sherratt and Romanov look very good together. His value has gone up. He's going to be traded as well. Right now, it's all good. It's all positive. It's like me on my treadmill, running at 100 miles an hour, shedding a few pounds. I've gone from 5 chins to 3 chins. You probably don't see it. Believe me, I have. Bring it home. Discover a club quality workout in the comfort of your own home. Visit matrixhomefitness.ca and get yourself a Matrix treadmill T75 with XUR console like Marinaro has at home. The final word goes to you, Brendan Kelly. You want to sing Go Habs Go or Bleu Blanc Rouge? What do you want to do here?
Go. I'm loving it. I'm loving the fun. You know what? It's going to be a tough couple of years. They're not going to win the Stanley Cup in the next 2 or 3 years. So if we can have a little fun, if we can have a guy behind the bench we like, if we could just watch Cole Caulfield play like this for a couple of years, that's great.
Bleu Blanc Rouge. Take it easy, man. I'll see you later, Vidal Sassoon. What a guy. Brendan Kelly. You can follow us once again on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and subscribe to our YouTube channel at The Sick Podcast. It's absolutely free. You know why? Because this podcast is sick. Da 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 da. See you next time.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow The Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by 8.6, Intense by Nature.